Hi everyone, it's James here from Production Expert, back in, quite frankly, gear heaven at the moment. I've been playing recently with the new Apollo X16s by Universal Audio. Now, you may have seen the videos that Paul, Drew and I have been putting together. That's a kind of end-to-end workflow using nothing but the Apollo X range of interfaces. What I'd like to do in this video is dive a little bit deeper into what I like so much about the X16. And in this case, a pair of X16s, aren't I a lucky boy? Now, of course, anyone who is familiar with my setup will know that I am using an Audient ASP8024 console, 24 channels of I/O, but it's not quite that simple because I've rigged it up to be 32 channels on mixdown. So hence, two Apollo 16s, 32 channels, lovely. Now, what I'm going to do in this video is dive in a little bit deeper to my connectivity between the console, how I use the console in association with the X16s, and what this other blackface Apollo 16 is doing down here. So I find the best way to review any kit, especially audio interfaces, is to actually do some recording. Who'd have thought it? And I've invited a couple of guys over, Paul Sundt and Danny Adams, and we've been working on a track, and it's very, very cool. Musically quite challenging for all of us, vocally very challenging. I hope you like it. But let's dive in to the Apollo 16s, talk about my workflow, talk about the setup, and, well, I'll show you around, quite frankly. So changing over from my regular I/O to using a pair of Apollo 16s was actually incredibly simple. One of the fantastic things about the ASP8024 is that all the I/O is handled over D-sub, the normal kind of Tascam formatted 25-pin. You know what I'm talking about. So it was a case of pulling out of my old interface, whacking it into the new ones. Now, I've done tests with Apollos before across the console, and I had to kind of create this kind of numbering legend down here for what goes to what. Not this time. Literally, the first 16 channels up to there go to the bottom one, surprisingly enough, and then I've then got another 8 channels, recording channels, which go after the top one, and then I bring 32 channels back from 1 and 2 because I've actually using my subgroups as an extra set of 8 mix faders, if you like. This track doesn't require that. I think we only got up to about 20 tracks in all, but you know, it's all there. I can bring everything up. From a mixing point of view, I like the analog console workflow. So I'm using a lot of outboard gear where, yes, I could use plugins, but normally my first 12 channels are just drums. In fact, they're always just drums. My EQs stay pretty much set. My dynamic settings, compression, limiting, pretty much stay kind of set. I tweak per project a little bit, but generally it's the same kit, it's the same me playing it, and I like the sound I get from my very small drum room. So this bit stays the same. What I then do is bring everything else back in pairs. So it's kind of like stem mixing almost. You can see pretty much that all the faders are at 0. The 2 I play with really are the click, because quite frankly, it's not important for recall. And this pair over here, we'll get to these in a minute. Everything else pretty much stays at unity gain for recall purposes. I know this bit isn't going to change. This bit generally doesn't change that much. And anything else is done in the box, which is obviously part of the recall process. You can see on this particular session, we're not using a great deal of plugins. It's because I like outboard processing. The bass was recorded with a DI, so I wanted to give it some of that proper old school analog feel, which is why we get this sort of sound. The bass is actually being limited externally by the WA2A. But hey, you know, I could have put an LA2A in the box. I've got a hardware version of that, so that's what I did. The guitars are running through a distressor. I don't have a hardware distressor, quite frankly. It could have been anything, but Paul's a very even player on guitar, so I didn't really feel the need to slam it or really compress it or control it that much. It just sounded really good. Vocals, because we were using the Townsend Lab Sphere microphone, I've gone for the Ocean Way Collection Sphere plugin. It sounds amazing. A blend of the C12 and the U47, OW47 should I say, sound incredible. It just works. Let me find some vocal.
Sunrise, city skies, the world's alright. Under Eastern nights, girls cry, crazy fights.
And the only other plugin we used on the lead vocal was the Fairchild, just to control it and give it a bit of Fairchild flavour, if you like.
Sunrise, city skies, the world's alright. Under Eastern nights, girls cry, crazy fights.
Not hitting it that hard, it just makes it sound, well, like it's been through a Fairchild, quite frankly. That's pretty much it. LA2A on the BVs, just to give them some sort of glue together. Everything else is being done in hardware externally, which is the way I like it, this kind of newfangled hybrid mixing approach. I love it. So where things potentially get very interesting is my console effects routing. Now, I do have two hardware reverb processors or effects processors. I've got the Procasti M7, which is mwah, and I also have a very old school Alesis Wedge, which is kind of a to taste piece. I kind of like it on guitars to grunge them up a bit, but it's not what you might call a quality reverb effects processor. It's got that kind of Alesis grit to it, which I do really like. But you'll see, laid out across the console, we have some pretty bold names. EMT 140, EMT 250, Ocean Way, Lexicon 224. Where on earth are they coming from? Well, this is where the old school black Apollo 16 comes into play. In the Universal Audio console, you'll see I have these two Apollo X16s with no effects on any of the inserts. Of course not. Why would I do that? I've got a console. When we get to the black Apollo 16, it's a different story. I'm basically using this as a glorified effects processor with the power of my entire UAD rig. And you can see the rig is substantial. A pair of octo cards, an octo USB, the hexacore processing from the Apollo X16s, and the quad core from the normal black 16. Now you'll see in here, I've got EMT 140, pure plate reverb, the Ocean Way Studio, Lex 224, RMX 16, and another pure plate set slightly differently. Mainly, I'm using the RMX 16 for my kind of character delays and things, the crazy stuff. The Lexicon 224 gets used a lot, but the main body of the drum sound comes from the Ocean Way plugin, and it's truly awesome. That's what the last two faders on the board are. That's effectively my room sound for the drums. So I'll bring it out, bring it in, overkill it, and then bring it back to where it normally sits. It is an incredibly flexible system I have now. You can see I've got my M7 and my Wedge coming up on the kind of stereo effects returns. The 140 and the 250 coming up on another pair of effects returns. The Lexicon 224 comes up on a line input. Not so neat, but quite frankly, I'm running out of effects returns. Oh no, what a terrible place to be. I could bring it up on a pair of the buses, but hey, I like to be able to have a track pair, a brass pair, a percussion pair, 4 vocals, BVs, keys, guitars, bass, click, and the drums. Why so many drum channels? Well, hey, I'm a drummer. Quite frankly, it's a thing. I do more drum recording than anything else, and I like to have drum control. I don't want to bust the toms down to a stereo pair. I want to be dealing with it. Sometimes I'll only record using 2 toms. And then, of course, I need to rejigger the EQ a little bit. I just really like working like this. It works for me. So let's dive in to the track. Take it away, boys. Whoa, stop, hold it. Hang on. So it's all very nice of you to be listening to my new band playing some tracks and listening to how glorious it sounds recorded on the Apollo X16s. But what you really want to know is, would it sound any different if it was recorded on the older Mark II Apollo 16 blackface, right? It's one of the biggest questions we've been asked. So what I've done in the main Production Expert article is you'll see 2 extra drum tracks. One drum track is just the drums, no processing, no reverb, no nothing. It's just the naked drum tracks mixed down to a reasonable stereo balance. The second take, however, is a very similar performance with the same desk settings recorded into the Apollo 16 and again mixed with no EQ, compression, goodies, reverb, anything like that. So you're just hearing an exact same stereo mix. You'll get the stereo mix from the X16 drums and the stereo mix from the Apollo 16 drums. And I've included a little bit of that in this video. So there you go. There's a track recorded using the Apollo X16s as my main I/O. My amazing kind of console effects routing options across the Universal Audio Apollo 16, the blackface one. But primarily, I think you'll agree that these things do sound absolutely stunning. Headroom wise, the A to D conversion, it's so difficult to compare these things like for like anywhere normally. It's so difficult to say, to go into a music store and say, right, I want to test that against that against that. Quite frankly, that's why we do these tests. I think you'll agree that the X16 does sound significantly improved upon over the Apollo 16 blackface. Do check out the audio examples in the main Production Expert article. It's much better quality, less horrible YouTube compression, all that sort of stuff. I think you'll agree, this is good, but this is just better. So I hope you enjoyed that and enjoyed the track. Thanks so much to Paul and Danny for coming over to join me in the studio. Much more music from the three of us coming. But for now, my name's James Ivey, and I'll see you again very soon for some more Gear Talk.